Hello and welcome to another meeting of Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield, Iowa.
Woo! Yeah! Awesome!
Woo! I'm very impressed by the turnout here on a very cold and dreary night that you guys came out here to experience the glory that is Toastmasters. Coming together here in a mutually supportive, coming together in a mutually supportive, positive learning environment in which every individual has the opportunity to develop own communication and leadership skills, which in turn fosters self-confidence and personal growth. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our president, Rhonda Whitaker.
I'm writing down.
Oh, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, welcome to Toastmasters.
Yes.
We are here at the United Methodist Church on the corner of B Street and Briggs. It is 7:49 p.m. We're starting a few minutes late. I'm so glad to see everyone here. Thank you for coming. It's excellent to see so many faces. Tonight we have an exciting presentation by two different speakers. One will be a longer speech. I'm going to introduce our Toastmaster, Mr. Surya Zeeb. Please help me welcome Surya.
Yeah. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm grateful to have the honor and the challenge of being the Toastmaster this evening. And in my first role, I would like to introduce to you the different roles tonight. And we have Stephen Harper is going to be the timer for us tonight. Stephen Harper, please explain what you will be doing.
I am the timer, and the timer's job is to time the speeches. The table topics are 1 to 2 minute speeches. The green light comes on at 1 minute. This is true for all the speeches. The yellow light comes on at 30 seconds. So it's just like a traffic signal, and then the red light comes on after 2 minutes, indicating that you are to stop. And that is the timing for the table topics. The prepared speeches, let's see, Karen Aoki will be 6 minutes?
15.
15 minutes. Oh my word. Okay. And then John Luros. All right, Luros is 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. Let's see. Then the evaluators will be timed also. Their speeches are 3 minutes. The green light comes on at 2 minutes for them, the yellow light at 2 minutes 30, and the red light at 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have the R counter. Carol Negro is the R counter for tonight.
Good evening, and I'm the R counter, and I'm going to, whatever time I'm going to count every time I did what I just did.
Thank you. And we also have a grammarian tonight, which is Mahesh Subramaniam.
Yes.
I hope that was correct.
I'm the grammarian.
All right.
Thank you very much. And like a vegetarian, I'll be dining on the words that you deliciously offer up this evening. And the word that I've chosen for this evening is spontaneous. I spontaneously thought of the word spontaneous.
Oh.
And I will be checking to see who is spontaneously using spontaneous this evening as well. Thank you very much.
Next, we have the general evaluator, Will Burns. Then we have greeter and joke master, John Lors. And Yes. Leader counter will be Rhonda Whitaker tonight.
Yes, and as leader counter, it's my job to make sure that everybody who brought their manual gets evaluated for the role they're playing tonight. So I'd like to ask everyone who is playing a role, is someone evaluating you yet? Okay. All right, very good. The people that brought their manuals are getting evaluated. Excellent reason to bring your manuals. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, and with that, we will start our table topics session for tonight. And with that, I'd like to invite up Monty Congdon, the table topics master.
All right. Trader Joe's.
Thank you, Syria.
So this week,
The theme I sort of chose for the table topics was, this week really kicks off the holiday season. We've got Hanukkah, we got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, we've got the shopping season, we've got snow, we've got all these holiday things that are on the way to taking place or about to take place. So all the things I have in this bag, I have 6 different items, and they're all a little bit holiday themed. Maybe not quite how you might think, but they definitely all play a certain part in the holidays. So I would like to have a volunteer or volunteers for table topics, and they will come up and they'll pick a number between 1 and 6. And on my top secret table topics ballot card, I'll open it up and I'll tell you which number that you get, and we'll pull that out of the bag. Do I have any volunteers? Anyone feel
All right.
spontaneous?
Ah, yeah.
Come on, spontaneous.
Between 1 and 6. Number 1. You get.
That's beautiful.
Do you have a groundhog in that bag?
That's beautiful.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home. My name is Ron Kerr. Really happy to see so many new members and wondered, where the heck happened to the old members? This is a gift, and this reminds me not only of the season, the gift of giving, but giving of Toastmasters and what Toastmasters does for you ultimately. When I was in the service, we do at least 20 push-ups every morning. And why? Because it keeps your upper body strength. Now, there weren't really competitions in form and like, oh, who can do a better push-up? But the reason you did the push-ups was to make you stronger so that if you needed that upper body strength, it was there for you. So the push-ups themselves were almost a dry exercise, but it was what it gave you later. And that's what happens in Toastmasters now for each of us. The reason why all these roles are in place so that everyone gets a chance to do something, get up and speak and be interactive. That's why you're here. The same reasons you came here perhaps because, well, I'm not used to speaking, I'm a little shy and I don't really want to stand up for anybody, is the same reason why you might hang back. So you get a roll. You have to get up a little bit. But what happens is ultimately what I've discovered now, I'm teaching full-time TM again. I became a TM teacher in 1971. Taught full-time for 10 years, the love of my life, and then my other love of my life came along, then other little loves of my life came along. For the last 30 years, keeping them supported and fed and the whole 9 years. Now I've got 2 little loves of my life, grandchildren. But now I'm retired and I'm back teaching TM full-time. And as a Marine Corps sergeant, Vietnam veteran, and TM teacher, we're having great luck with the veterans. My guys, the Vietnam veterans, older guys, but also the new young guys coming in. They really got worked over. I've had the privilege of teaching some soldiers out in Fort Gordon, teaching Vietnam veterans. It's just such a great thing. And what I found is that ultimately, we come back to this, is that the gift is that all the skills I would practice here and then, deliver one thought to one person at one time. And don't forget to pause for effect to draw people in. And sometimes we want to speak up really loud so everyone goes, what was that? And then sometimes it's a good idea to just whisper across. And all these purposes, it's not to manipulate people, but rather it's to hold their attention and get your message across. And you would like to think you have a message worthy of getting across. So that's our other challenge. It's not just speaking, that becomes the easy part. It's having a reasonable reason to take people's most valuable, precious commodity, their time, and give them something in exchange. They give you their time and attention, and when people are looking at you, and it's such a kick when you get up, you go, oh, they're looking at me and they're listening to me. Yeah, you know, they should. I got to give you something back. And that's the lesson. And the lesson, bottom line, is that Toastmasters will serve you very, very well. Much, much more than you might think at the moments that you're going through it. Very much like the push-ups. Props for dramatic effect.
Table topics, all about spontaneity. You never know where it's going to take you. Do I have another volunteer? I got 5 more. Yes, please.
I should go this way.
Thank you, sir. And what is your lucky number? Between 1 and actually 2 and 6 now.
6.
Number 6. Number 6 is a package of ads.
All right.
Well, Black Friday blowout, that's what I like to see, because I always like a bargain. I've always got an eye for a bargain. I'm always looking for the cheapest version of anything, so I always go on eBay or something like that, or get the cheapest airline to fly. I guess it runs in the family, I don't know. When I get a very cheap flight, and I say to my mum on the phone, I got a flight from here to there, Denmark to England once. And the first thing she asked was, did you get a good price? So, and I also like looking at ads, all the brightly coloured whatnots in the magazine. I don't know, it's just something, it's enjoyable seeing bright colours and nice letters and all sorts of interesting designs of adverts and things. It's just entertainment. It's like a movie, and it doesn't cost anything if you get the leaflet for free through through the letterbox. So yeah, lots of ads. That's what I like to look at. It's meaningless nonsense, really, and I should know better. It's brainwashing, but it's enjoyable, and we have to do something to enjoy ourselves. And as I say, it's cheaper than watching a movie. And oh, that reminds me. Yes, I was fascinated by last week's theme of a bad day. I was thinking, what is a bad day for one person, maybe a good day for another person. If your football team wins, it's a good day. For the other team, it's not a good day. And I was thinking, when we have a bad day, maybe the good part of us is gone to be with someone else for the day. So maybe they're having a fantastic day. So when you have a bad day, you can console yourself with the thought that you're making somebody else's day really great. So apart from that, I don't know what else to say, because
So that's 2 down. Do we have time for one more? One more. One more. Who wants the lottery?
Oh,
Oh.
that's all right.
Can you split it?
We can split it, we can both go.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we now have any number between 2 and 5.
3.
Number 3. And S's.
Hello, Toastmasters, honoured guests and viewers at home. I've been given antacid tablets to talk about. My husband's been told he needs to take these at one point. Or something like these, the Ayurvedic equivalent. I think sometimes people feel like they need these after overindulging in food. Primarily in this country, it seems to be at Thanksgiving, because I found here that everyone still remembers how bad they felt after eating so much at Thanksgiving that they don't tend to overdo it as much at Christmas. Well, that's my experience. Whereas in Australia, we don't have Thanksgiving, so we just really overdo it at Christmas. And the tradition in Australia is people tend to, it's a hot weather and everyone's outside and they eat a lot and then they lie on a beach somewhere for the rest of the day, just in a coma of overindulgence. And maybe if they'd taken the antacid tablets, they wouldn't feel quite so bad. I think it's very common for people to eat too much in these celebrations, and in some ways it's a shame because I think it takes away from some of the enjoyment of being with friends and family if you feel terrible afterwards. And you don't tend to remember how great it was enjoying when you're suffering from the after effects of food. And even though food is good, it's like anything in too large a quantity and for too long, it can really be painful. But I'm hoping that this year we'll all think about it. And we'll eat slowly, and we'll pay more attention to our food and as we're eating, and when the times come when we feel fairly satisfied, we won't reach over to that snack bowl or whatever. And if we think about taking it a bit more easy, maybe we'll enjoy it more. So thank you.
Thanks, Steph. I think that's all the time we have for table topics. Let's hear from our timer who qualified.
Okay.
We're not voting now.
We're not
Yeah,
voting?
no, we are.
Oh, we are.
You vote now? Okay.
Yep, vote time. So far, of our table topic speakers, Vay and Stephanie both qualified.
So Vay and Stephanie, let's take 1 minute to vote. All right, 1 minute's passed. We are now going to have Will Burns come up and evaluate our table topic speakers. Will?
Monty?
Thanks, Will.
Thank you, Monty. And now it's my pleasure as general evaluator to call up Stephen Harper to evaluate our table topics.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Monty on doing a great job of picking out a relevant topic and some humorous items that were the springboard for some very interesting and humorous talks. Ron, I thought you jumped on the opportunity to connect with everybody who's here about Toastmasters and speak to what we could benefit from at Toastmasters. So that really pulled us in because it was relating to something that we all cared a great deal about since we're here. So I thought that was a good segue. I felt that you were speaking a little too fast. I may be doing that now, actually. I think it tends to happen when we're doing table topics at such a short time, and we go very, very quickly. I think when you actually paused and varied your volume softer and louder, that was very effective. And I thought you had a great conclusion also. DeVay talked about advertisements. I thought you had a good use of humor there, talking about being cheaper than a movie. I had trouble hearing you. I moved to the front, and it may be that I have difficulty with your accent also, but I would suggest speaking a little bit louder. I would like to have seen you develop that into something further. I have no idea what, but I just expand on it into something like what might actually happen when you go to the store, following one of those advertisements. Perhaps use it as a springboard to tell a funny story about something you did while shopping using an advertisement in the past year. Stephanie, great use of humor. You had a huge smile, very inviting. One thing I didn't care for was this posture. And when you, at the end, you started gesturing more and using your hands more, I thought that worked much better. And also, I thought, although it was funny talking about overeating, also you gave us the
moral imperative, don't eat so much this time, so that was quite relevant. But I would also like to see you use it as a springboard to get into, develop it more into some more ideas. And I, once again, have no idea what those might be. But stories, everybody says stories are really good. So if these things can remind you of some short story, obviously you don't have a lot of time, that's what I would suggest. Overall, I think it was an excellent job by all three speakers.
Thank you for that evaluation. So this ends the table topic segment of our Toastmasters meeting. I'm going to turn it back over to Syria Zeeb, our Toastmaster.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's going to get exciting. We have some prepared speeches tonight, and this section will be that of the prepared speeches. So first, I'd like to invite Stephanie Chambers to come up to read the objectives of Karen Aoki's speech.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Karen to give her speech tonight. Karen's doing the 6th project in the Competent Communicator Manual, and the project is Vocal Variety. The title of her speech is The Sound of Silence, and her objectives are to use voice, volume, pitch, rate, and quality to reflect and add meaning and interest to your message. Use pauses to enhance your message. Use vocal variety smoothly and naturally. So that's what I'll be mainly paying attention to in Karen's talk. Karen Aoki grew up in Tokyo, Japan. She came to the United States to realize her dream of mastering Western classical flute when her interest took a surprising change of direction during her years studying at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. Sound of Silence is Karen's personal account of the transformative effects of music and of her observations of the subtler mechanics of silence and sound that are at the basis of making music. Karen presented this talk for the last project that she completed at Toastmasters and at the most recent Speakers Trust, that's the Advanced Toastmasters meeting. She will be re-presenting the material with special attention to vocal variety and with improvements based on feedback she received from her last 2 presentations. Karen cordially invites us to attend the TEDx Women Conference on the 5th of December. And by the way, men are also allowed to attend. It'll be on the 5th of December in at Cafe Paradiso, I think at night time.
Yeah.
When Karen will be giving this talk as part of the evening program. So please welcome Karen to do Sound of Silence. Sorry, we're just doing. Should we pause that? Do you want to just pause the camera for a second?
Yeah, can you pause? Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. This speech is essentially a personal life story. A lot of my stories involve music, so that's why it's a featured topic in my presentation tonight. As part of the vocal variety topic, I thought the flute would be a cool way to tie in vocal variety, because for me, the flute is an extension of my voice. So far, I've relied exclusively on my flute to do all of my talking, but since March, I've really made it a personal effort to start using my own voice to communicate, and I've received a lot of valuable feedback here. Tonight's talk will be a practice for next Thursday, the 5th of December. I will use kind of a lecture demonstration format. I will demonstrate with some music, and then I'll demonstrate some things that I've discovered about the beautiful transformative effects of sound. Maybe you'll see why I spent so much time in the practice room every day for about 10 years, just perfecting this craft. I'll start with the performance. along with me since I was about age 9. It was one of those pieces that inspired me to really go deeply into music, because I saw that with music I could experience a kind of transformation that took me beyond just the day-to-day, the mundane. It took me to something greater. I'd like to know what part you tuned into when I was performing up here. Was it the way I moved? Were you fascinated by how I stepped forward or how fast my fingers moved? There's a lot of different things that are attractive to us about a performer. Maybe it's the way they're carrying themselves. For me, on the inside, by the time I perfected a piece or prepared it, my attention's no longer really on the notes or my fingers. It's like the music is more like an excuse to be up here. It provides the intellect something to do while the rest of me transcends or expands and connects with something else, something other than sound. Maybe if you notice my phrases, maybe this time I'll play a phrase and then you can just kind of pay attention to the way the phrase is moving. And then again, I'll alert your attention to something. So. By the time I get to Eastman School of Music, I've spent a lot of time on exercises, technical exercises, breathing exercises, but what I was really interested in by the time I got to Eastman was the rise and fall of sound. I was really fascinated by where the phrase was coming from and where it was going. It's a really simple concept, but for me, it's like where my attention would follow that phrase, and wherever it ended, it would just be this place of complete, utter peace. And at that time, since I was really stressed out and in terrible health, that experience of peace was powerful for me. It was like this little bit in the day where I was no longer in the day-to-day stresses. And if anyone here is familiar with the mechanics of using sound and its subtler aspects until you arrive at silence, perhaps you recognize what I tapped into. So this is a very natural process. I'm not discovering anything new, and that's also why I was so attracted to this technique of transcendental meditation, which I picked up at that point. It was just a very natural phenomenon of life circumstances. I was poised, ready to experience something greater than just a career, or even being the top flutist in the world just didn't really have that kind of charm for me anymore. Because I wanted to know about what's this heart connected to, what's the soul value? So what, if I can play an orchestral piece with a group of people, but we're all unhappy and stressed out. It's like, I think we've lost the big picture here. So I'm in the practice room, I'm taking these pieces, and I'm no longer like motivated to practice the way I used to. I just don't care about the technical pieces. I want really simple phrases. So I started selecting pieces like Debussy, where not a lot of notes happening, but plenty of time to really go deep, because my mind was so jazzed up or just unsettled that to me just to be with a very simple note and phrase and to just settle down was just like such a treat. So I picked up transcendental meditation at that time, and that's actually how I ended up in Fairfield, because I wanted to understand a little more the theoretical framework for this process. And lo and behold, here I am 10 years later, and I'm doing a PhD on this topic of sound and unpacking sound. So you could say that music led me to silence, and now I'm unpacking that silence. And silence is not a dead thing. It's very much alive and dynamic. And so now I'm coming out the other end of having dived into silence for quite a few years and becoming a much more dynamic person. So it's a very fascinating process of using sound with mental activity, and to use it in such a precise way that you're transforming. You're just experiencing your mind transform. Very simple mechanic, which the university here is all about. It's a program I haven't found anywhere else, so that's why I'm here studying and researching. I'm doing transcendental meditation. I learned the advanced program called the TM Siddhi and Yogic Flying Program. There's a third technique that came out in 2000, which involved reading texts, ancient texts, called the Vedic literature, in its original language, Sanskrit, and I'm using the original form, like this. And we learn it in about a month's time at the university. Now, for my PhD research, I'm reading about 3 to 4 hours a day of these texts and exploring what happens just in terms of my consciousness, my state of mind, my state of physiology. I've been reading for about 1.5 years, so I'm going to demonstrate what I do every day. Okay, so you're welcome to close your eyes and relax. There's no pressure to do anything. Maharshi Patanjali Pranitam Yoga Darshanam Prathama Padaha Atha Yogan Shasanam Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha Tadadrashtu Svarupeva Sthanam Vritti Sarupyamitharatra Vrittaya Panchataya Klishta Klishtaha Pramana Viparya Vikalpanitra Smritayaha Pratyakshanumana Pramanani Viparya Yomitya Jnanamatatrupa Pritishtham Shabdajnananupadi vastushunya vikalpaha Abhava pratyaya lambana vrittir nitra Anubhuta vishaya sambramosha smritihi Abhyasa vairagya bhyam tannirodaha Tatra stitav yatno bhyasaha Satudirghakala nairantarya sakkara sevito dridha bhumihi Drishtanushravika vishaya vitrishnasya vashikara sanya vairagyam. That's one about, there's 36 texts I'm going through. So I'm just halfway through. And I feel comfortable enough to start talking about it. It took about 1 year to even figure out what's going on here, and I know I'm feeling really good. And so that's when I kind of came up with this talk about music. I have to look at my whole life. It's been a fascinating exploration of sound and how to use it and where it can take the mind. For this research, because to me it's music. And it's more of music than it is a language, especially the way we're using it. And because I'm used to transcending, when I read the text, that's what happens. My mind gets quite silent. And then all there is these beautiful vibrations. And they're not all just the same. They have very different effects. And I can tell you text by text the different kinds of qualities I experience. So here's a fascinating mechanic here. So I'm using sound. My mind settles down. My thoughts clear out. And then I experience the vibrational effect. It's no longer like a relationship with words and forms. It's a solid experience. There's no division between me, the reader, and the text. It's just vibration. And this is where the bliss comes out. Now here, let's go into why. So what that I'm experiencing bliss? Where's the practical element for this? That's the question I had until about recently. Well, great, so every day I'm reading for 4 hours, I feel really good, but you can't just really make a living off of that. But what I did notice in the last month is my heart's really starting to change. It's like the last texts that I've been reading have been really working on my heart. So just out of curiosity, I looked up the text, and it happens to be text on expansion of the heart. It's very much about surgery, actually, ancient surgery. That's just knowledge, side knowledge. But I've been feeling that the heart has been wanting to express. So what's come about with all of this is a transformation in the way I'm living. It's much more of a heartfelt experience. It's much more like, what am I experiencing in my environment right now? And then a response. So in essence, what I used to do on just the stage, where stage I'm primed for that. You know, I prepared, here I am, I'm going to do this, make this splash, and then make a presentation. But then I go back to my life, and it's just kind of shallow. You know, the sparkle isn't there. So what's happening now is an experience of prolonged, heightened experience. Like the stage is a heightened experience, but now my life is taking on that flavor. So all the time I feel like I'm in this living, live participation with the environment, which is my stage, you know, and this is the actor. It's a way of living passionately. The other effect is, once you're tuned into these vibrations, it's essentially your intuition coming back online. And whatever we're doing, whether it's career or whether it's looking for something to do, if you don't have your intuition, what are you going to do? So it's like now I feel like I'm set on course. It's like everything in this body is working, it's coming online, and I'm game for anything. It's a fascinating research project. There's about under 30 people who've been reading these texts, so there's not a lot of subjects yet who've gone through this, so we're the first candidates, so to speak. I happen to have a music background, so that's the kind of language I use to express my research. Somebody with more of a brain science background might have a very different take on this. This is the way I've kind of put together my experience. Are there any points that you want me to bring out again? Are you following the transformative? Okay. In a sense, this is the talk I will give next Thursday, and I appreciate any feedback you have for tweaking it in any way. Thank you for your attention.
Next up.
I need a minute to write comments.
You can take time to
Yes.
feedback. Please take that time. Okay. Please finish your writing, because now he gets to the next speaker, and that speaker will be introduced by Scott Terry, who will read the objectives of the speech for John Lewis. Thank you.
Well, still blown away by just hearing Karen's presence. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I just totally get blown away when you start doing that. It's the second I've heard you do that. And I'm so happy to see Ron here tonight, and I'm honored that you're here to visit us. But on to John. John! It's so exciting to do this for John. He's like my hero here. John will be talking about flight planning. A traveler in 3 worlds, or 3 universes. Okay? John is a private pilot. He will describe planning a flight from Fairfield to Rochester, Minnesota, and then Mars. Okay. John will use many visual aids to lead us through the 3 worlds of flight planning. John has flown all over the US, Canada, and had a chance to fly float planes in Alaska. Whoa, that is serious. The objectives for John are: select visual aids that are appropriate for your message and the audience. Use visual aids correctly with ease and confidence. This should be 5 to 7 minutes. What's really nice in the book, and again, I really recommend when everybody goes through the book to really look at not just the executive summary and objectives, but they really have a great, especially with some of these, like getting comfortable with visual aids, really a wonderful outline from the general increasing understanding kind of thing to selecting the right visual aid, when to use them, design guidelines, display tips, have a backup plan in case it fails, and really designing that. Yes, it's time to end. And I'm bringing John up now, who will give us an awesome speech, because John is master.
Good evening, golden speakers, honored guests, and viewers at home. It's fantastic. We have a huge holiday crowd here tonight.
Huge.
Huge. Packed. What we're going to talk about tonight in this speech is flight planning. And what I've done is I've thought about it, and I've decided to divide it into 3 worlds. Where I am, where I'm going, and the space in between. We all are familiar with that metaphor. In order to talk about flight planning, we need to have flight. So the flight is going to be to Rochester, Minnesota, because today I called Auntie M, my Auntie M. Auntie M, Auntie M! Called her up. How you doing? She says, well, I'm not doing very well. I got a letter in the mail. They're canceling my health insurance January 1st. And I have to get to the Mayo Clinic to see my cardiologist. I said, well, that's fantastic. And she said, no, it isn't, because I have nowhere to get there. I have to be there tomorrow. But you're a pilot, and you can fly me. So I said, okay, I'll call you back in a second. Let me do some flight planning. Now, planning a flight through 3 worlds, first thing you want to know is, what's the weather going to be like? Where I am, where I'm going, and in between. So what you do is you call up the FAA. Talk to an aviation meteorologist. Tell them the flight you're going to take the next morning. He says what time you're going to leave, what time you're going to get there, and he gives you the weather on the way. Tells you the temperature, if there's any clouds, if there's rain or lightning or snow. So, went through the flight, weather briefing it's called, and he said, do you want to file a flight plan? I said, let me get back to you. Let me talk to my passenger. So I get off the phone, and I call Auntie M. I said, the weather looks good. You want to leave tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock? She said, fine. So now I know the weather's good for the whole route. This is a map. Fairfield's here. And we're going to go up to Rochester, Minnesota. So I know now the weather is good. Now when I plan a flight, I like to know where I'm going first. I like to know what I'm going to get into. So I go and I look at Rochester Airport. I pull up Rochester Airport. Here's a diagram of Rochester Airport. It tells me all of the information I need. When I get to the airport, the runway information, I make my decision, are the runways long enough for my plane? What headings are the runways at? What's the tower frequency of the radio? I put that into mine, so when I get there I have somebody to talk to. Is there fuel on the field? All sorts of information. Now I'm going through this old school with charts. I can do this on my tablet. It's all done automatically for me. But I'm just showing you guys how this happens. So now I know where I'm going to Rochester. I found Rochester on the map. This is a chart that we use in the plane as we fly. It shows, all these lines are like airways between navigational aids. There's a lot of information here. So now I know where I'm going. Now, what I'd also like to know is, what do I have here now at my airport? What world do I have to manage at Fairfield? Well, in Fairfield, I have to know that the plane is in good condition, that I have enough fuel, that Auntie M's weight and my weight and the fuel's weight are all within the bounds of the aircraft. I have to know the distance from Fairfield to Rochester. Now, old school, I have my handy ruler. I measure the distance. That's in nautical miles. All right, I go to the scale. At the bottom, it tells me how many nautical miles per inch. It's 172 miles, nautical miles to Rochester. What's my heading to Rochester? There's also a compass. Here's your compass rose. It's divided, everybody knows, in 360 degrees. We fly headings. Pilots fly headings. And you fly headings for a certain amount of time, and then you change your heading. So I know, by holding this compass, compass on Fairfield towards Rochester, I know I have to fly almost direct north, actually 4 degrees. So when I take off from Fairfield, I fly 4 degrees, almost north. What else do I need to know? What I also need to know is, what am I going to see along the route? Are there towers along my route? Are there military areas that I can't go around? Military operating areas, they're called. Once I get all that information, I call the FAA back up and I fill out this flight plan. I tell him I'm flying VFR because the weather's good. Tell him the number of my plane, my special equipment on the plane, my departure time, my airspeed I'm going to do. The time is in Zulu time, which is Greenwich Mean Time. My altitude I'm going to fly at, how many souls aboard, my destination, how long the flight will take, because after that time they'll come looking for you if you don't land, the color of the plane so they know what to spot from the air. Once I fill this all out, I call him up, I file a flight plan. He says, fine, here's your frequency, call me within whatever time you're leaving, call me within 15 minutes. If you don't call me, I know that you haven't taken off. So the next morning, that's what I have to do. So Auntie Em and I get in the plane, 7 o'clock the next morning, we take off to Rochester. We have a great flight. We land in Rochester, and I get her a cab. And I also give her a pair of ruby slippers so she can get her own way home, because I have to get back to Fairfield.
All right. Please end with your writing, and now we go into the voting. Please vote for best speaker.
And
take 1 minute for that.
And for your information, both Karen and John both qualify.
Yes, thank you. Now to our next section of the evening. Please join me in welcoming Will Burns for the evaluation section.
Surya, thank you. And now it's my pleasure to call up our first speech evaluator, Stephanie Chambers.
Hello, Toastmasters, guests and viewers at home, and Karen. Well, I really enjoyed hearing Karen's speech again. Even though I've heard it before, I must admit, I found it just as enjoyable the second time. In fact, I think I noticed things a little bit more this time. And I noticed also that you changed a few things. Now, this project was vocal variety, and I think we all noticed or felt that waves of sound, with the flute especially. And I could notice that Karen did have quite a lot of vocal variety herself in her speech. I would like to point that maybe, I was thinking just in terms of, I've noticed some speakers, you may have heard Seth speak and various other speakers we have, they almost choreograph their vocal variety like they do their points on the stage. You can almost feel like this is their soft bit. This is their really loud bit. And I think, I know myself, I don't do that much either. The upper echelons of our vocal range. But maybe you might want to try it to see if it adds even more texture and more variety to the speech. Maybe when you're telling your personal stories or at those moments, say just after the subtle moment of reading the Vedic literature, you could be soft then. But then build up to some climax at the end, where you raise your voice a little to make a point. And although I really enjoyed this speech, I felt that the ending still needs a little bit more of a wrapping it up. And because your structure, I think, is so different. It's a very unique speech, the way it starts with the flute and then it goes into Vedic literature and the reading of it. I think that may have led to a little bit of a looseness in the structure, whereas maybe you need to think a little bit more of wrapping it up at the end and reminding people of your journey, or bringing together the different parts of the speech and then making some strong conclusion as to where you want to take the audience. I noticed at the beginning you'd added some interaction with the audience, and that was really good to get the audience thinking of, well, what are you thinking about when you're watching or listening to someone play? I thought that was good, and maybe you could come back to that sort of audience interaction at the end when you're asking them, well, how did you feel with the Vedic literature? Did you notice anything? Or some conclusion, some action point, something for them to take away, so that when they leave the speech, they can think about how it affects them and take that into their lives as well. But other than that, I thought it was a great speech, and I really enjoyed it. I love hearing how you're bringing sound and transcendence together. So thank you.
Stephanie, thank you. Scott, come on up for John Loros.
All right. John, welcome Toastmasters fellow guest and John. Fun as usual. Spontaneous, we might say. Visual aids were appropriate for this speech. They were excellent. The visual aids did help us understand, such as the map. The problem was it was back here and there was so many little lines that we couldn't see it. It would have been much better on a projector here so you could focus on one little point so we knew what we were talking about. But I love the map. So the map was good, it was clearly visible, but it was too small for us to really get any detail and really an understanding of what you were trying to create from it. You're obviously comfortable with the visual aids and you use them smoothly, but you needed to go a bit more slower and actually say this line to this line means this. So even if they were too small, at least we felt like, hey, we could see what this point to this point actually was and what you were doing with it. Your purpose was clear. The speaker's word choice was appropriate, and it was obviously well researched. But the point that you need to look at is some of the basic speech stuff. You're doing a lot of this. Okay? I was starting to get a little dizzy. Be more purposeful in your movements. Be more purposeful in your connection. Not just your pause, but the visual connection. Remember the point. One item, one person, one time. Monty. Ron. The 3 points you made were great, but say each point as you're going along. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. So you're not just starting and ending, here's the 3 points, you're also using the stage if you can. Here's point number 1, we're going to talk about the destination. We're going to talk about the source, the purpose, the way we're traveling. Point number 3, the goal. But so you could use the stage if that helps, but at least try and move things along through each thing. Again, purposeful movements, purposeful connections. Love the feeling. I love the grand opening with the outfit and the way they come out with such flair and humor. I love your humor. Use it. You use it so effectively. Keep it. Just integrate it to how you're using it. Great details from checking with the FAA to fuel to codes and the red slippers. We all need our red slippers. Thank you, John, for a wonderful presentation.
Scott, thank you. Now we will vote for one of the 3 S's. I'm told that Stephen, Scott, and Stephanie all qualify. And we're back. Starting off here, our reports. For the timer. Table topics, Ron Kerr spoke for 2 minutes, 40 seconds. They, 154. Stephanie, 213. Speeches, Karen was 1510, and John was 640. There was a failure on the timer's part for Stephen. As the evaluator there, I didn't get your time, Stephen. I was busy doing the GE evaluation, but you were within the limits. Stephanie, for your evaluation, 316, and Scott, 323. Good job. Now I will call up our next evaluator, our odd counter. Come on.
Yeah, Ron had no glitches. You had 4 ums, 1 so, 1 but, and 5 ands. Stephanie, in your table topic, it was 1 but and 4 ands. Stephen had 5 ahs, 3 ums, 1 like, 2 buts, and 5 ands. Karen had 1 1 3 likes, 4 so's, and 4 ands. John had 4 uhs. He had 7 so's, 1 but, 2 ands. Stephanie, in her evaluation, had 1 2 buts, 4 ands. And Scott had 1 so, 3 buts, and 1 and.
Thank you, Carol. Now, Marion, come on up and give us your report, please.
Oh, I forgot to use spontaneous.
So,
Yeah.
Ron, I really like you use the phrase, the most precious commodity is time. And it seems as though we might have gone over in time, but I really like that. And Karen, you said a way of living passionately. We've heard that before, but it still has a great feel to it. Thank you very much. Monty and Scott both used spontaneously, and that's all I have. Thank you.
And now I'll call up our joke master, pulling double duty, John Loros. He moves at his own pace. Time is his own commodity.
Okie dokie. Okie dokie, jokey. Okay, this was sent in an email to me. And, no, you're not counting Oz anymore, right? And I'd like to read this. I need my glasses, so excuse me. It's a bit long. Part of it's a bit long because it's the difference between men and women. Okay?
Cut the part about men, please.
Well, that's a pretty short part. You'll see. Okay, it's a married couple. They each have their own diary. So, one night after a long day, this is the entries that each of them make in their diary at the end of the day. Life's diary. Tonight I thought my husband was acting weird. We made plans to go to a nice restaurant for dinner. I was shopping with my friends all day, so I thought he was upset at the fact that I was a bit late, but he made no comment on it. The conversation wasn't flowing at dinner, so I suggested we go somewhere quiet where we could talk. He agreed, but he didn't say much. I asked him what was wrong. He said, nothing. I asked him if it was my fault that he was upset. He said he wasn't upset, that it had nothing to do with me and not to worry about it. On the way home, I told him I loved him. He smiled slightly and kept driving. I can't explain his behavior. I don't know why he didn't say, I love you too. When we got home, I felt as if I had lost him completely. As if he wanted nothing to do with me anymore. He just sat there quietly and watched TV. He continued to seem distant and absent. Finally, with silence all around us, I decided to go to bed. And at 15 minutes later, he came to bed. But I still felt he was distracted, and his thoughts were somewhere else. He fell asleep, and I cried. I don't know what to do. I'm almost sure that his thoughts are with someone else. My life is a disaster. So the husband wrote in his diary that night, a 2-foot putt. Who the hell misses a 2-foot putt? Sir.
Pilot, golfer, man, many words.
Golfer.
Golfer. Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. We had an experienced member stepping into a new role here. Stephen was the table topics evaluator, and not only did he do this for the first time, he actually stepped up at the last moment to do this, to fill in. So thank you for that, Stephen. Thank you. I like that you acknowledged the table topics master. It's always a thankless job every week to come in, think of something in whatever way, and that was a very nice touch. You spoke to Ron, first off, about speaking too fast, and how you were doing the same thing. And I would just like to call attention to the fact that I do that as well. And I think as you do more evaluation, you're naturally kind of structure your thoughts in a way that will allow you to speak. You'll feel less rushed, and you won't feel, and you won't even, that desire to speak fast won't even be there. It's a challenge to have suggestions for all speeches, but you did that, and that actually is quite commendable, because I rarely, or anybody, has trouble finding points for every speaker, and you did that particularly for table talks, because it's so off the cuff. Thank you for that. Stephanie, I like that you really, first off, acknowledged what the speech was, local variety, but you went beyond that. That really, you really spoke about, Karen, pushing the boundaries of that, between low and high, between very loud and very soft. And I like how you had a lot of points, but you ended with a really nice sort of wrap up there. Very nice. Scott, I also like that you talked about the things some of my pet peeves. Blowing up the visuals, having them big, and the connection, which is something we all need to work on. But and also bringing up the fact that, or one thing I would just suggest is for the speaker would be just to hit those points again for the 3 worlds, because it wasn't until the end that I realized that the worlds were actually airports and the space in between. I was thinking it was flight plans, and it was the flight plans and the airport maps. It was just the exact lines there. All in all, good job, and I will now call up our Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Will. Now we come to another exciting section of the evening. It's the section of the awards. Let's start with the award for best table topics. Can you give me some sound here? Keep going, keep going. Where's the one? Stephanie. Think that's it? Congratulations. Okay, next one. Oh, who's gonna be? It's gonna be Karen. Congratulations, Karen. All right. And to the best evaluator. We got Scott. Yes. Plastic.
Oh, plastic.
Yes.
I won.
Okay, all right, yes, I still have to give out these ribbons. Best speaker, Karen, sorry, best table topics, and...
All right. Go, Sarah. Just come on.
Yeah.
That's, okay.
How do I get
Again, best speaker, Karen. Hey. Best table topics, Stephanie. Well done. All right, thank you, everybody. Now I would like to invite our president, Rhonda Vinegar, up again to finish up the evening.
Well, another wonderful evening. Who thought we'd be taking a flight to Rochester tonight? Isn't that great? We're going to the orchestra. Fabulous. Wonderful, exciting speeches tonight and dream about. I would like to ask our guest, Ron, who's actually a member, if he would like to make a comment tonight. It's a surprise visit that you're making tonight. We're very happy to see you here. It's great to see a veteran member come on a night when most of the other veteran members are gone on vacation. So, would you like to say anything, Ron?
Interesting.
Well, as unaccustomed to public speaking as I am, thank you.
Well,
Just so great to see you all. I'm teaching in Bethesda, Maryland. It's one of the most active, we're competing with San Antonio, one of the most active centers for TM. We're in Washington, we're dealing with lawyers and attorneys and lobbyists, the whole 9 yards, and 13-year-old kids that are seeing psychiatrists on taking 2 and 3 antidepressants and everything we've heard about. We're right out in the middle of it. Successful, wealthy people. The cover of Bethesda magazine, which this is one of the top zip codes out there, and the cover of it is, we're healthy, wealthy, and wise. How come we're not happy? Happy. And when all this time of explaining to TM, and especially to veterans, why it is you want to do this, because it's the trauma associated with the stresses that you've been through and all that, I finally have come out of the closet and just say, it'll make you happier. It'll bring the happiness back that you used to know when you were a little kid and when you were 17, 18, when you joined the forces. Nothing happened. You were full of energy. You were invincible. And now what happened? Can't even sleep at night without a handful of pills and all sorts of things. And you don't even know what you're going to do next because the noise could set you off. So regaining happiness, that's what it's all about. That's the simplest thing. If you're not happy, all right, you got everything else. But that's what puts the cherry on top. That's what puts the zest back into life. And so it's a funny thing when you watch David Lynch. We showed a lot of these things over and over again, and he said, well, I seem to have everything. And then I looked into the happiness field of my life, and I found it empty. I found it lacking, and I got to do something about that. Those are the words he say. So he started TM, and he just said, and that did it. And then he realized, I need to spread this. So the thing about TM for a long time, being a Marine Sergeant, Vietnam veteran, I kept all of that stuff down because I don't want to offend anybody or upset anybody. But if you're meditating, then don't be afraid. I can't tell you how receptive people have been, and this includes the Jessup Correctional. We have 75 incarcerated Vietnam veterans. The judicial system does not acknowledge the fact that possibly if you were traumatized and had a flashback, you might do something. They see what you did and they lock you up, just like they don't acknowledge, they won't accept this. So I go in there, and I'm with a couple of Vietnam veterans that have been going there for a long time. And I said, well, how much time would you like me to sit? And I'm figuring, he said, well, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll scale and leave plenty of questions. I get in, and Nick says, okay, Ron, talk. I was like, okay. So I talked for about 45 minutes. And what I found is that now we can do keynotes. It's just that you know what to say, you know how to keep people involved, and I can't even promise them TM. So I'm thinking to myself in my head, I'm going, wait a minute now. I don't know if we'll ever be able to teach these guys TM. How cruel would that be to say, look, there's this technique, it'll set you free and blah, 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 but you can't have it. But fortunately, I've had other life experiences. I've had 30 years of activity in the men's movement. I've read, I've studied, I've done And that's what happens to us as meditators. We become more vast in our interests. We study things. We understand things. We embrace things. Then most people are like, they're just in that little thin line of life, just trying to keep everything settled, don't upset it too much. And so it's like I could relate to them in a sense that look, men, to be the men they always wanted to be, to pull together as veterans, to be the example. So when you go walking through the yard here, I mean, you can't imagine how much ribbon wires out there. And it's like when you go walking through, the other young men who have no role models, they don't know what it looks like to be their own man. They've been reacting to everything all their life. To see somebody say, wow, to be the mentor, be the role models, even in prison. It doesn't matter how long you're here or what you did. Our point of power is only right now, right now. A minute from now, who knows? We may be laying on the floor. 30 seconds ago, history. Right now. So what we do now. And to bring that out, then I was invited back, surprisingly, because I thought, this is that. So they invited me back for the Veterans Day, and we went in, and next thing I know, they made a mistake and said, Nanya, would you like to say something? And I was meeting some of the new guys that had come in, and even the president of the VVA, the Vietnam Veterans of America, was saying, who's all the new faces here? How come you haven't been here before? And I was going around and introducing myself when I had a moment before we started, and I said, hi, my name's Ron. He said, yeah, we heard about you. And I was like, oh. You know, you're in the prison, it's kind of like, I hope that's a good thing. But anyway, we wanted to do a little bit more. I've been invited back now. And it's just such a joy to be able to use all the different experiences, be it piloting or music, and bringing that out in such a way that you take people, shake them a little bit, wake them up, and they go, wow, maybe I can do that. And that's what we see in Toastmasters. You've seen it yourself now. You see a new member come in, and they're up here, well, and they're reading the paper, and they're hiding behind a box. And with this loving encouragement that we give each other, this peer group response, and we realize nobody's out to get us. We're not in American Idol where they're, that stuff. No, it's like, wow, that's a great job you did. You really did. Can I suggest one thing? Karen, you did a little dance. Every now and then you just kind of do this dance. And it would be very clever and very effective because your presence is so commanding if it was part of your routine. Because then what drew a lot of attention? Wow. But it seemed to be random. And so if it's a little random, then it kind of distracts us for a minute. And you asked about your stance, what I thought about you. You made me think of a martial artist. Every now and then I get in and watch, I get on Netflix and watch like 10 martial arts things. And you just look like the posed woman warrior. When you hold it like this, it could have been a katana or a bow or whatever. You just have that commanding presence. And you, young lady, you'll be on stages. There'll be thousands of people and you'll be talking to them and you'll be right at home. It's just how John, you're the man. But you gotta lighten up. This is fun. Yeah, you're like, oh, you're like, and you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Yeah, lighten up, man. I got to fly in a plane, man. I go as fast as I want. I can't hit nothing. I'm like, look, I'm gonna close my eyes. What am I gonna hit? The ground? Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, all the people that missed this night will regret that. We'll give them the FPAC station to watch. Now, if there is no more business tonight, does anyone have anything, a concern or anything before we leave for vacation for 1 week?
We're not meeting next week?
We'll be here next week, but there's a holiday, so it's like a vacation.
Oh, right. Concept.
Okay, everybody's happy, everybody's got a place to go. We'll be meeting again next week. We are adjourning till next Tuesday, same time, same place, 7:30 here. Please come early. It's good to socialize a little before the meeting, and also it prevents us starting late. Thank you, everyone. Please stay and help put a few chairs up and take the stage down.